be discussing as far as call treatments that might be a bit of a term that we've coined per the industry. So what we're really going to do is define what call treatments are and let you know why you should care about them. Then we're going to talk through 4 optimized call treatments that you can be using today. And then we're going to talk through some use cases and finally open things up for live Q&A. So ultimately what call treatments comes down to is getting the right customer to the right place at the right time. And you can influence this through filtering and routing, creating more and better data for yourself as marketers, A and B testing, and creating the best customer call experience. So effectively, that call treatment is not only the caller's user experience as they engage with you from the moment they make a phone call, it's also your ability to take advantage of all the information mined from that phone call through your reporting and analytics to make a more optimal experience for future callers and optimize your marketing efforts.
That makes sense to me. And one of the things I wanted to mention, Amalia, prior to is I know a lot of clients will often come to us and ask me, you know, what kind of data we have on our end, and really I like telling them, like, a lot of the data you're going to have is on your end. You're going to be, you know, you'll have way more information to deal with because you're going to be listening to the calls yourselves. You're going to have, you know, you're going to be able to speak to your sales agents. You're going to be, you know, listening to all the calls. You're going to see the results of the calls. So really, in essence, we're sort of enabling, or what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, I guess enabling or empowering really clients to kind of make their own decisions with these call treatments.
That's exactly right. You'll be able to empower them to really hold a mirror to their customer and analyze their different quirks, interactions, and engagements with that call experience the whole way through, and then use that data to really understand that caller experience and how to create more like that in the case that it's the type of caller that they want, and again, optimally getting them to the right place at the right time.
Perfect.
So today I wanted to bring up 4 optimized and effective call treatments. We often have this opportunity with webinars to educate and to train, create a mindset in sort of the abstract, but generally some of the complaints you can usually hear with webinars are that there aren't actionable items. So we definitely wanted to make sure that you're leaving this call with a little bit more value in terms of tangible things you can put into action today. So we wanted to highlight 4 things you can put into effect today depending on, you know, what your campaign or industry or need might be, and how it's best for you to get that caller to the right place at the right time. So those start off with the verified location. This is very key given that what we know about callers is that, especially if it's a mobile device, 20% of callers are calling from outside their area code, which is generally how we're making decisions about where to route. Mm-hmm. Smart IVR prompts are another effective call treatment tool that you can use. This is the ability to create a warmer and more genuine call experience, the ability to really filter and route appropriately by engaging with that customer and soliciting information from them about their interests and why they're calling, or, for example, if they're insured or uninsured. You also have the opportunity to use filtering conditions. These can be, like I just mentioned, with key presses soliciting information, or they can be sort of behind the scenes done on the back end by analyzing what we know about that caller calling in, where they're calling from, when they're calling, and if that, if you happen to have married that call with any sort of white pages data or online information, you can really use that to decide where to send that caller without even engaging them proactively, but like I said, doing it on the back end. And then as a fourth optimization here, it's a small nuance, but can be very appropriate and effective in terms of creating a seamless call experience. If you do happen to be dabbling in different languages in terms of the campaigns that you are working through, Invoca does have system prompts that are inherent in the technology, for example, when you're recording a call. And so we do have the opportunity to allow those language prompts to be in Spanish or French, which would allow you to create that seamless experience should the IVR you're hosting on your end or the caller that's picking up the phone be catering to that audience.
That's really cool, Amalia. In terms of verified location, and this is one of the benefits I try and tell our clients probably most often, and it's also probably one of the most divisive as well. So we sort of have, on our end, we sort of have half and half. We have some campaigns and some offers and some buyers, and they don't really care where the client is, meaning for something like insurance, where physical proximity is not as much of an issue, verified location would still be valuable to them, though, even from a data aspect, right? They might have a better conversion rate in Texas versus California. They might get more sales from Montana versus, New York. You don't really know until you actually can verify the location. So even if it's not physical proximity, even if that's not an issue for something, like home services like plumbing, where there's a very sort of short radius that you need to be around in, for bigger companies or services that don't require physical proximity, it's still an incredible valuable tool.
Absolutely. I would agree with you there in that, especially when you're leveraging that data and using it against all the other data that you're collecting about that phone call. We understand that the phone call is really just one piece of that omni-channel journey. So if you are a marketer and you're trying to understand what ad copy is working, what was the user experience online, and you're mining all that detail out, and then you can also say, of these effective call paths, it seems that a lot of them are responding to this particular ad that we're really displaying, targeting in Texas, like you might say.
Right.
And then you can optimize from there to crank up the budget for that particular area or understand what could be improved with other pieces. So it's really just using all those data points and taking advantage of those, regardless of if it has to do with brick and mortar servicing and
right.
Very specific hyper-target type needs and services.
What I like the most about Invoca's call treatments, first of all, we manipulate and change them all the time, but there's so much fluidity, there's so much freedom really to sort of play around with it, to test it, to try different ones, and I'll tell everybody that's listening to the webinar, a campaign's success is probably more reliant on the IVR than almost any other factor. I know rate is important, I know locations are important, hours are important, but I tell you the one factor that we can sort of twist around easily, without negotiations, well, a lot of negotiations anyway, or any kind of fundamental changes at all, is the IVR. And I know this is very hard to do, but what everybody should be doing if they're in any way involved in pay-per-call, whether they're a publisher driving calls or whether they're a buyer wanting calls, if you're not checking your IVR, if you're not putting yourself in the shoes of a customer and doing that call, and if you're not happy with that, oh boy, your campaign's not going to do well. It doesn't matter what you're paying. It doesn't matter if you have the best product in the world. None of us are going to sit through an IVR that takes 3 minutes to get through. Doesn't matter. I mean, within reason. I mean, I would never sit through an IVR that's going to ask me 17 questions about, getting my roof fixed or something like that. It's not going to happen. So I know we're going to go dig into a little bit deeper, but if I can, sort of really place that emphasis on the attendees' minds here. Put yourself in the shoes of a potential caller. Try not to be too biased, because I understand that you want to buy calls or send calls yourself. Put yourself in the mindset of a caller. We've all called in and listened to an IVR about a service. If it's good, we're likely going to go through with the call. At the very least, listen to what the agent's going to say. If it's bad, we're going to hang up very quickly.
Yep, I absolutely think you're on the right track there. There's so much with putting yourself in the customer's shoes and really dialing that promotional number yourself and understanding what that experience is, not only on the piece of the technology that you're hosting, maybe the IVR and filtering rules that you've created, but if that's on top of the IVR that's connecting to hosted by the client or advertiser, and those questions are redundant, automatically you have a place that you can definitely create some improvement and optimization there. So that's absolutely important. I'll share that we do have a customer who originally really was trying to filter and route expertly, and so they did ask quite a few things within their IVR, and it was, you know, roughly 3 minutes long, and they were noticing that they had a high drop-off rate. And so with a test and tweaking just, you know, one campaign to run it, so it was a much more simplified, just a couple of quick questions with a key press, they were able to increase, not only decrease that drop-off rate, but increase the conversion rates that they were seeing on that call. So that just shows what you can really gain and what value you can generate from having put a lot more thought into those IVR prompts.
Totally. And I'll just say this real quick. You don't have to be sort of fully competent on a technical level, attendees, to understand this. You don't have to understand sort of how it works, just why it works. So again, put yourself in the shoes of a caller. It's very simple. The IVR is, you know, clean, short, simple, gets to the point, then your call is going to work. If it's not, then you can manipulate it around. I find if you put yourself in the shoes of that caller, it's very easy to understand. Sorry, Molly, I keep interrupting you. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. I would also add, you know, that having a professional prompt recording, you know, while our sort of text-to-speech is very useful, and being able to put your own personal touch on that and upload a professional prompt really does make a difference for that caller experience as well. So that's what I would add for the Smart IVR prompt bullet there.
Very cool.
Great, and we're going to see in just a little bit here sort of live demonstration of how easy it is to manipulate those different logic rules that you were talking about just now. So sit tight and we're getting there.
All right.
All right. So as far as our audience on the call today, too bad we can't do a real show of hands here, but would be interested in knowing how many of you all have experienced and gotten a chance to view the user interface we're going to look into today. But if this isn't familiar, this is really the second step within our general campaign wizard after setting up some other pieces. So right now, just navigating here to get to that campaign, which I've adorably labeled Home Contractors R Us. All right. And so just before we dig into this example that I've spent It can be fun, so you can get a little bit involved in the call treatment and get pretty sophisticated. But I did just want to, at a glance, review some simpler options here to start out with. So within the call treatment, if your goal is to, say, check within the particular region that you've referenced in your campaign, then you'll have the opportunity to do so and then ask a question. So instead of asking questions and then checking the region or however that might be, this would definitely be the more optimal way to go about doing that. You really want to think about your hierarchy of funneling the customer through a positive experience to ultimately get them to the right place at the right time. So here's an example of how you can use checking within region and asking questions to navigate them to where they need to go. And you'll notice that these destination numbers are 2 different numbers. And so that'll ultimately route them to 2 different places. One thing you also have the opportunity to do is if they're going to the same place, you can put in the same number in both fields, but you'll still be able to mine, like we were talking about with analytics and reporting, that their interest was for personal insurance needs versus business insurance needs.
Amalia, quick question. Is there a limit on how many key presses there are per IVR? Would it be 9 or would it be 10?
That's a really great question. I believe it's 9.
That's what I figured, yeah.
Given the digits on the actual telephone and being able to capture that dial tone. So I believe it's 9. While that is, definitely possible, you, again, really want to make sure you're fine-tuning that experience, because you can imagine a ask question prompt that involves 9 key presses would be pretty lengthy.
It's a little too long. Yeah.
Yeah, what I might suggest as an alternative is starting a little bit broader here at the top, and then if there's more questions that need to be asked respective of those different key press routes, then you would be able to create maybe key presses 1 through 3, within the selection of 3 different groupings. And, for each individual caller, that doesn't mean that they've experienced 9. It means they've ultimately experienced 3 key presses. So,
right.
Again, very, very custom to knowing your target market, that general caller experience, what their capacity is for being online, and what's most important to discern as quickly as possible before getting them over to the respective representative.
Yeah, and Amalia, I love the narrowing down by region for a number of different reasons. But again, we do have quite a lot of buyers that are focused on proximity, physical proximity, and I find the question, at least when I'm listening to the calls, the question that often takes the longest to figure out is actually the address. So it's not necessarily them discussing their problem, which is really the first thing they should be discussing. Welcome to Bob's Plumbing. How can I help you? And well, my pipes burst or whatever. It's, the address, because oftentimes somebody doesn't know, the postal code, or I guess the zip code down there in the United States, or the postal code up here in Canada. They might be at a different person's address, so they have to go find out the address. So that kind of variable is paramount to making sure you have a good call experience. You want to eliminate the issue of, if they're outside the region. So I know this is sort of just one variable you can do, but it's probably one of the best ones you can do.
That's a great point. I also wanted to draw attention to this else section. I know hanging up sounds a little brutal, but
it sounds mean, but it's not. We're helping them.
Exactly. Effectively, that's just someone that you're being conscientious of their time as well, and they're not a fit for the business for the reasons that you've determined above. So, can keep a seamless, positive experience, being able to add in a prompt here just to let them know, that's not a fit, or to call back at a different time. You can direct them to a website, whatever you'd like to accomplish in that particular prompt. You have that opportunity to, instead of just.
Oh, Amalia, you might have cut out a bit. Are you still there?
Oh, I am. Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry, just missed that last bit.
That's all right. Thanks for checking. So just to reiterate, you would also want to have a prompt here, because when you do experience this prompt, it's because there was a hang-up intentionally. Otherwise, if it simply disconnects, then you may not know why it disconnected and find yourself unnecessarily troubleshooting an issue that you directed to happen.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, the else hang up. I'm glad you mentioned that. It sounds harsh, but I mean, really, at the end, it's about us sending, the buyers or the clients the right kind of calls, and really, your buyers don't want your agents wasting time with somebody who is outside the region or has a problem that is nowhere near related to what service you provide. So it may sound harsh, but it's not like we're telling them to go jump in a lake. We're very courteous, very kind, and if us being Canadian, we're obviously very polite, so we'll always be very nice in our IVR messages. But yeah, if you feel that it's a little too harsh, we can always change it.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other piece I wanted to call out as a feature is the text message option. It's very compliant, so you definitely have the customer intending to press 9 to hear any additional offers. But this is available should this sort of aid and abet that lead generation and having a higher conversion, if this makes sense for your audience and your product or service.
Totally.
Perfect. So just to jump into the platform here to provide some complexity that you might enjoy here, we have the opportunity to check a couple different things. So this IVR I've created with the goal of only asking soliciting from the customer what their location is if they're mobile, because places that landline is tied to. And then being able to distinguish between if somebody's in region and a fit for the product or service, they're just calling during the wrong time, we want to coax them back to calling again.
Right. And
let them know when we are available, versus if they are someone that is out of that particular region and they have and they aren't a fit to any degree. That's something we would do, one of those polite hang-ups. But you can see that we really have if-then logic, so you have to make sure every statement you put forth is connected to. But this allows, even though you the experience that the caller is noting, right? All they're noticing is that, if they're calling from their cell phone, they're giving their zip code, and then they're getting transferred to a particular number here.
Right.
So it's a lot simpler for the caller, but for you, you're definitely optimizing how you're sending that caller, where you're getting them, and at what time. You're also, I threw in here a little bit of safeguard, if you will, or a gatekeeper, which is that sometimes there can be misdials or calls that really aren't for your particular service. We see that sometimes in the
Oh, Amalia, it looks like we might have lost you again on just that last point. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yep.
Okay, great. Would you mind repeating just that last point? I think we cut out just a little bit there.
Yep, no problem. So since landline is essentially a straight direct transfer, if we note that they're in region and during hours,
right,
because you always want sort of a gatekeeper to make sure that person is interested in your service and it's not some sort of misdial, you have the opportunity to add in a key press here, such as please press 1 to make an appointment, and that solicits from them a key press so that they have identified they are a quality lead to that degree.
Right.
And then you can forward them to the call center.
That's great.
Amalia, so a couple tricks in there to use.
Amalia, it looks, I want to say, guys, it looks a little complicated. It's not at all. Once you get the hang of it, you'll be playing around with it all the time. And a quick note, Amalia, I wanted to really congratulate you on bringing up an awesome point about not sort of giving up on a caller if they call from outside the hours or for whatever reason they didn't get connected. Don't, clients listening to this, don't give up on those callers. RingPartner, we send hundreds of thousands of calls per day through Invoca, and a lot of them are repeats. Now, I shouldn't say a lot, but quite a few, and that may sound detrimental, but in a sense, what it means is that callers don't give up on these numbers. So just because they see your number, they're going to dial it in their mobile device. Even if they can't get a hold of you, they'll probably try again in just a couple of minutes. Or, if your message says, we're open, these hours to these hours, they're going to call back the next morning. Trust me, I've seen it. We have a lot of repeat customers. And the good news, of course, to a lot of our clients is we don't charge for repeat callers. So definitely something to keep in mind. And Amalia, that's a good issue to bring up. Thank you.
Yeah, and I know that we're getting towards the end here. Mm-hmm. One thing I wanted to say to kind of remove some of the front end effort here, we do have our bundled call treatment. Mm-hmm. So this would be effective that anyone subscribing to Invoca, to the platform, they would have the opportunity to create something called a bundle, which allows you to group a number of campaigns together that have similar qualities or complementary qualities, and maybe different hours or different regions or a different fit for, based on the audience that's calling and the type of caller that's a good lead for them. You would be able to bundle them into this particular campaign type, and through the technology, check against all of the details that are in their campaign, such as hours, regions available, and things of that nature, budgets, call caps, and then from there be able to route that call, again, without soliciting information from the consumer, and then also being able to achieve that main goal of getting the caller to the right place at the right time.
Totally. That's pretty much the theme of the presentation. Right callers at the right time, at the right place.
Buzzword. Yeah. Do you have any comments on bundling? I know that RingPartner is able to leverage that feature pretty efficiently.
It'll be a topic for another presentation, just because we can go into great lengths for it. But I mean, really, the advantage of the bundles is that it just makes it a lot easier to get the calls to the right places. So it's amazing to see the variety in the types of buyers, about what kind of clients they want, what regions they want, what hours they want. It would be, dead easy if every client came on and said, we have nationwide coverage 24/7 and we pay all the same amount. But that's never the case. But that's the advantage of the bundles, is that we're going to be able to send, people that want, maybe 1 or 2 calls a day from Florida to, a nationwide buyer who wants 100 calls a day. And through the bundling, it just makes, filtering the calls very, very simple.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely you can do an entire webinar on its own, bundling and all the exciting things that we can do there.
Yeah, totally. So look for that a little bit later on, I guess.
Yeah. So I know you'd wanted to share some use cases. Do we still have time for that, or?
I think, let me run through real quick the landscaping one, and we'll send out better explanation to the follow-up attendees on the other stuff. But I just wanted to mention, guys, a real example of call treatments we've seen lately is with landscaping and yard maintenance. So before, we just set it up thinking that, the buyers would cover everything from grass cutting to, leaf removal to, fertilization and all that stuff. And after listening to the calls, which is again is a huge advantage of Invoca's services, we found out that there's very segmented wants and desires from different buyers. So grass cutting, leaf collection, and leaf blowing and fertilization, all that are totally different. They might as well not even be in the same category. And you think, well, it should be an all-in-one, but it's not at all. So before we segmented the call treatment and we just had, one for, landscaping and yard maintenance, press 1, everything else press 2. For the first 4.5 months of the year, so that's from January 1st to April 21st, we had 439 calls and the average call length was 33 seconds. We changed that on April 22nd and we segmented it a lot better. So very specifically mentioned, for grass feed, fertilization and the like, press 1. For grass cutting, press 2. And then I think, leaf blowing and leaf collection, press 3. And after that, and so in less than 1 month, we've almost achieved the same amount of calls. So we're at 412. And we saw a 30% increase in the average call length. So it's a prime example of how, we, RingPartner, thanks to Invoca services, can segment those call treatments and get the right callers to the right places. And now it works for everybody. Everybody's very, very happy. So, very, very, very sort of good example as to how we can do that. And one last thing I wanted to reiterate is, partners, you can always, give us advice or change up the IVR if it's not working. You can have your own custom IVR, and don't worry, I'm not the person that records the IVR, so you don't have to worry about me telling people to pick up their leaves or whatever. We actually have a couple people over here that have much more radio-friendly voices. So just wanted to mention that real quick before we finish up here, Amalia. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Yeah, certainly I see that we're kind of butting against our time limit here.
Sure.
We can definitely send out a quick one-sheeter with the descriptions of some of these use cases. I definitely think it's a valuable thing to see how other people are seeing success using call treatment effectively. Absolutely. As it relates to their businesses to drive more value.
For sure. Be happy to.
Okay. So there's that buzzword again, right place, right time, ease of use to test, optimizing marketing, and increasing your conversions. That is sort of the gist of what we wanted to share with you today. We hope you were able to take away some valuable pieces to try out on your own or to have conversations amongst your partners driving you traffic, or if you yourselves are receiving that traffic, or if you're the ones driving it, just to keep all these things in mind for improving that call experience and getting yourselves some better data to become better marketers.
Couldn't have said it better myself.